You've got your idea and you're starting to look at building a presentation. There's obviously a number of different ways you can do it. If you've got a favourite, go for it. This is one we would recommend. It's sort of a step-by-step process, and it just makes sure you don't miss anything out. So a really good way to start is by figuring out the key message that you want your audience to take away. What is the one thing that you want them to remember after you've given your presentation? And start with this and write it down. So once you've written it down, it's there and it's solid and you physically can see what it is. From there you write your conclusion. So what are all the ideas that you're tying together to get your audience to take away this key message? From that you can write out your key points. So all of the things you're wrapping together in your conclusion, how are you going to present them and in what order are you going to present them? So the next step obviously is to work out the order that the audience is best going to understand. When writing a presentation you need to keep in mind that your audience is going to think about things potentially differently from how you think about them. So it's a good idea to put yourself in your audience's shoes. Then expand the points further. Turn it from a list of bullet point facts or ideas into an actual presentation and expand on them and give examples and flesh them out so that people can actually understand rather than just learning some things. One really big tip that is really helpful is to write your long presentation first and figure out how you want to present that when you, or if you have the opportunity to give the 12-minute presentation, and then narrow that down to a 6-minute presentation, keeping your most important points rather than presenting a 6-minute presentation that you're happy with and then having to find another 6 minutes out of somewhere to present a 12-minute presentation.
And an interesting exercise you could do is you could look around the room and you can try and find something that you could use to illustrate your big idea. So you could use a chair or some keys or a door or a pen. So in my case I could say, look, there's an open door. It's, you can think about it abstractly. It's an open door through which we can walk through and have a future with far fewer invasive species in New Zealand. So you can use this to illustrate your wow idea in any way you want to, as creatively as you want to.
A presentation is understanding the audience that you're giving the presentation to and tailoring your presentation to fit that audience. Not all audiences are the same and they're not all going to have the same level of understanding. So say, think about presenting to your friends or your parents' friends or your friends' parents, and they're all slightly different groups of people, and so you're going to have to tailor your presentation to them. In a presentation on science or a big science idea, you've got to go in it with the understanding that not everybody is a scientist, and even if they are, they're not all scientists in your particular field. So you need to consider the level of understanding that the public will have for your given idea or topic. It's always a really good idea to present to the lowest level of understanding and build from there. So if there's a particularly tricky concept or you use some jargon that the general public isn't going to know, explain it or give an example that everyone will understand. It just helps people follow your ideas a bit better rather than getting lost in the middle of your presentation. And that's something that the judges are definitely looking for. It's knowing enough about your subject that you can explain it to someone who knows nothing about it and make it relate to them and hopefully get them interested as well.
Thanks, Eleanor.
Thank you.
Couple of things.
Sure.
Perpetual, has it got a patent on the process?
The Renew process is patented. However, last year I entered my idea into the Audacious competition that Otago runs, and I secured a potential joint venture contract with them. They would help us set up a processing facility.
Does the process enable all the types of plastic to be munched up and turned into whatever you want them to be, or do we still have to filter out?
Unfortunately, you do still have to filter out. It allows for similar types. At the moment, it's
So what are we going to do with the unsimilar types?
You still do have that problem, yes.
Just let me clarify something. You don't need helium-3 for fusion, right?
Yeah, we would need helium-3 for fusion.
There are other ways of...
There are other ways, yeah. You can use deuterium for a fusion reaction, but then it's not that powerful compared to helium-3. In a sense, and there's some problem with... well, it's kind of hard to explain, but I'll try to communicate it with you. But deuterium, when using two deuterium atoms to fuse them, there's actually a neutron which is released, and they have problems containing that neutron, and that's why fusion reaction is really impossible without using, helium-3. So,
All right. Can you think of any unintended consequences of mining the moon?
positive consequences for
well, possibly not.
Possibly not? Okay.
Hi, Hayley. My stupidity, I'm a little unclear. Are you saying it's not in all schools now? It is in all schools now.
I'm saying it's a subject that is available, but not all schools offer it.
All right. When the cars were invented and took over the world, we left it to the experts to know how they worked. Why do you think that's not the case with computers?
I think computers are such a huge subject these days. I mean, how many people do you know without a phone? You know, how many people do you know that don't use the internet?
I don't know many people without cars either.
Exactly.
But they don't know how they work necessarily.
But they have the background knowledge of how to use that car. So by giving people, like teaching them how to use computers, like what computer science is really, it teaches them the background knowledge of how to use a computer and different ways in which it can be applied, and makes you appreciate what you have has been created by not just one person, but thousands working together and bringing it all together to make something that the consumer loves.
Thanks, Sebastian. You didn't happen to have a chat with Hekia Parata before she left, did you?
No, I didn't.
Just quickly tell me what your apps did.
Well, I've got a number of apps.
Well, what did Quicksand do?
Quicksand's my most recent one. It
does it do?
It syncs your 50 most recently opened files with the cloud. So normally, if you're going to work or school, you've got to remember to bring your files on a USB stick or email them. With Quicksand, you can forget about that. Your 50 most recently opened files are with you wherever you go, wherever you need them.
What about Broomstick?
Broomstick clears the icons in your menu bar. On a Mac, you've got icons in your menu bar, and some apps don't behave properly, and they don't let you remove those icons. So Broomstick lets you get rid of those icons.
Are you rich beyond my wildest dreams now, then?
I wouldn't quite say that, but I have been able to buy a ticket to Paris for this Christmas, and I should be able to pay for my first year of university.
It's really important in a presentation to be confident. If you're confident, you're also much more believable. So part of this, how you stand and move, creates an impression upon your audience. So if you're speaking at the floor the whole time, no one's going to listen to you. If you don't make eye contact and you look at the floor, it's very different to looking out at your audience and speaking to them. Shifting your position during the presentation is useful as well. If you're dynamic, it's much more interesting than someone that's sitting in one spot. If you can avoid using a lectern, that's a really good technique as well. And then confident movement also helps keep the audience focused. If you're quiet and not particularly confident, then people are much less likely to listen to you. So eye contact, try to avoid wearing any jewelry that you might fidget around with. I have this problem in some presentations I get. I'll fidget with my watch, so I always try and leave it on the desk when I'm speaking. Use gestures when you're illustrating a point. So if you're saying something with really vigor, you can express that with your body language. And then at other times you can stand relaxed in a balanced manner when you're trying to change the emphasis of your tone, and you can do this with your body as well. Something you can do in your own time is you can look at a really excellent TED talk by Amy Cuddy. Your body language shapes who you are.
How to give a good presentation is to be your own news presenter. So either use your idea or pick another idea that you've seen today or lately that you're interested in, and write a very, very short example news item for a current affair news program. This will help you sort of figure out how to keep your ideas concise and relatable to a general audience, as well as give you some practice at presenting. So stand in front of a group, find your parents, a group of friends at school, anyone who will listen to you, and present, and use this as a chance to practice your posing. So power posing is a huge thing. You don't have to be uncomfortable, but it's just standing there in a strong and confident manner so that people believe you and people find you a lot more convincing. And it's really good practice. And at the end of your presentation, your mock presentation or your news presentation, get the group to give you some feedback. Sometimes you don't even know you're standing there looking at the ground giving a presentation until someone tells you. So it's always a really good idea to practice in front of people and get them to tell you what you're doing really well. You know, you're projecting your voice, you're speaking really clearly, but you're doing it while hunched over or fidgeting. So it's a really good idea to get some feedback.